Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery and I brought with me from the freezer a nice assortment of melon rinds. We got cantaloupe and watermelon rinds for the red wigglers that live down here in this 70-day-old system. We did see some flying insect activity in here last time, so we were pretty thorough, applying a whole bunch of Mosquito Dunks. And well, 12 days later, not sure if it's too soon to expect any sort of results. Hopefully we'll see fewer insects. Let's get the system up on the bench. Let's get down to feeding them. You know, even when I was peeking in under the shelf to see what I could see, I was able to see this little isopod, a little bug that came with these other guys who, I don't know, maybe I just saved this guy because the other two were in the same sort of situation, just sitting out on the surface, kind of unable to get around. You can see one here hustling to get away. I don't know if that's the little guy I just dropped, but these two, they didn't move, so I'm assuming that they might be expired. Maybe if we put them in a place where they get a little bit of moisture, I don't know if they got dehydrated or what the reason was for them just getting out there on the surface, sort of turning over, it seems like, and they weren't able to right themselves, and then they just got stranded there. So, I don't know. I didn't realize plastic was like a hazardous place for certain critters to get out there, especially ones with like a dozen legs or whatever. You figure these little guys should be so able to get around and be mobile, but I guess they're maybe a little bit limited on what they could do once they turn over on their backs. So these little guys got fed cooked food 2 check-ins ago, and when we came back in to see how they did with that cooked food, which was mainly onion, celery, there was some garlic. The celery was gone, but there was still some onion left over and even a piece of garlic. So I'm wondering if we'll see any of that leftovers from what was fed 24 days ago. What we fed them last time, 12 days ago, I doubt we're going to see any leftovers of, because they got a whole bunch of frozen berries. I got a feeling that that stuff, even if it were something that would be easy to see leftovers of, I don't think we would see much of it. I think it was some strawberry and some blackberries maybe. And they were all just frozen and just in a big pile. And got sprinkled in here for the little wormies to enjoy. Hopefully they liked it. And you can see we've got a good bit of bedding down here too. Well, 70-day-old system, it's only 10 weeks old. It's fair to expect that the majority of the environment is still part of the original bedding that the system was built out of. I don't know, I just sort of had this feeling like the very lowest material was kind of getting packed down there a little bit tight. So I thought as long as we've already opened up a nice little crevice to put the feeding into, maybe I would just reach in there and till that stuff up just a bit. Good bit of moisture in here. I'm liking what I'm seeing, and well, you can imagine what's coming in with today's feeding is just a whole bunch more moisture. Kind of making me feel like using the bedding that I wanted to use today should be a-okay, because let's see, all right, it wasn't in its place. I hadn't put it back up on the shelf yet because I just came in from resupplying myself with some dry leaves. So since the bedding they're getting today is not my prepared bedding, which is prepared with moisture and goes into the system with its own existing moisture, the dry leaves that they're getting today, well, they're dry. But I've got a feeling that these chunks of yummy food that are going in with it are going to provide the system with a good bit of moisture to compensate for any drying that might happen. So that looks pretty good to me. Since I've got more leaves, we can sprinkle the surface with leaves again like we did last time, because you can see how nice it looked out here on the surface when we first arrived with all these leaves. Some of them looking like they hardly got any action yet. Well, we'll change that. We'll blend all this in. Guess we'll use the covering up of the feeding zone as an excuse to just start moving material here and there, blending it together. At least we get a little chance to see how things look in the material out on the outer edges. Get so focused on how things look down in the feeding zone, it's easy to overlook how things are looking elsewhere in the system. And that's all looking pretty good too. Not a lot of worm action out here, except maybe this last handful. I could feel a good bit of squishiness as my fingers ran through it. And maybe it was just a little more damp over there or something, but it seemed like as I plowed down the entire outer edge on this side, it seemed like there was nothing going on until I got to the very last handful, and then a whole bunch of worms hanging out there. Very nice, very nice. So that was a nice little quick check-in with the 70-day-old system, getting feeding number 7. All very easy numbers for me to remember, so I don't have to write them down on my information board. And I even checked the intervals between all the feedings, because it did seem like we were kind of developing a pattern here of always being 12 days between check-ins, which was the case this time too, as was the case the past 3 or 4 check-ins. I think there were only 2 check-ins out of the 6 or 7 that the system's had now over its lifespan that were 11 days. Always sticking to either 11 or 12 days, but more recently kind of sticking to the 12-day interval. So just pure coincidence, not planned, but who knows, it might continue without us even realizing it. I like to say I wasn't trying to react overly to it. I could always see 1 or 2 flying insects cruising around out of the corner of my eye. Certainly didn't seem chronic, so I'm going to give the system some credit for showing what appears to me like improvement from the perspective of flying insects, but I'm going to stick to the play it safe mode here and just make sure we refresh the application of the Mosquito Dunks before we cover up. Just since it's already seeming to work, let's not let it stop. Let's let the work continue until it's really done. But yeah, it's nice to see much fewer flying insects in here than last time. Last time I was kind of skeevy. Way too many. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.